What's going on, everybody? So have you ever watched a movie and you're just like, this movie is 100% catered to my interests? Well, that's a movie that I watched recently from 2020 called Uncle Peckerhead. Uncle Peckerhead is directed by Matthew John Lawrence. When a punk band scores their first tour, life on the road proves tough when they are joined by a man-eating demon as a roadie. This film introduces us to Judy, who's this young girl who's working at a bakery, and she's putting in her resignation. And she goes home, and she's super excited because her band is about to go on tour. Their punk band is called Duh. And you see a letter on the outside of their house. They're about to get evicted. They don't have any money. And their van gets repossessed. And they're like, we're about to go on tour. How the fuck are we going to be able to tour if our van is being repoed? So they decide to make these flyers and set them across town. And they have the very last flyer. And they go to put it in the window of this van. And it's a guy sleeping in a van, and he gets out and he's like, what the hell are you doing? This is my private property, whatever. And they said, oh, we're a band, we're going on tour. And he's like, well, I can drive you on tour, that's not a big deal. And so they agree to it, and they load it up, and you find out the guy calls himself Uncle Peckerhead. And they go on tour, and when they're out on tour one night, he turns into this cannibalistic demon monster who eats people. And it becomes this really absurd, over-the-top, wholehearted horror comedy about these kids just trying to make it in the music industry. And it really was just one of the most fun films I have ever watched. The chemistry between the three bandmates is incredible. The guy who plays the guitar player and the vocalist in their band is hysterical. His chemistry with Judy is fantastic, but all three of them are so great. And then the chemistry they have with Uncle Peckerhead, when they find out Judy is really reluctant when he first kills one of the concert promoters that didn't pay them enough money for their gig, and the other two are like so amped about it. They just think it's the coolest thing in the world, and they're like, oh, come on, it's not that big of a deal, don't worry about it. And watching the dynamic of Judy constantly always in the back of her head being like, okay, he's this evil monster who is capable of doing something horrendous at any given moment. I have to keep my eyes peeled. And I thought that was a really cool way to do this movie. I thought it was super fun and just really over the top and insane that this was the direction that they took it. And it really does play into that like question of, is Uncle Peckerhead just this misunderstood person who is afflicted with this thing, or is he truly just evil incarnate? And it's constantly making you question that in the back of your head. And I'm someone who, music is a huge part of my life. It always has been since I was a really young kid. And punk music in general, I've always been a huge fan of it. And so this movie looks at what it's like to be a touring musician, and like how concert promoters screw you, and how life on the road is super tough, and you're essentially living show to show based on merch sales to get a place to crash. Or are you sleeping in the van that night? Do you have a place to shower? Like all of this stuff that's kind of put into perspective of music and touring life. And it's clear that the filmmakers in this were focused on that element of it. And there's clearly a love of music that is just bled through this entire thing. The original music from the band Duh that has shown up in this, and even like all of the music that they use, is so incredible. My only complaint is you just get little snippets, and I just wanted more. I wanted more of this music. I wanted more of this world. I just thought that it was so much fun, and I love movies like this. I've talked about a movie before, I've never done a full review, called Deathgasm, that has a similar structure where the music is kind of interlaid through the film. And I love movies that have these people who have a huge passion for music that bleed through into the film. And really you can tell, like, from the way that the band performs and the instrumentation and just everything about it, you can tell that the detail is there. And that's something I pulled out of this movie that made me love it even more. And it truly was one of the most fun films that I've watched the entire year. I can see this being in my regular rotation for years to come. There's so many amazing scenes in this, and I don't want to give too much away because I feel like it's just such a fun ride to watch this from start to finish. But there's so many great deadpan delivery lines in this movie, and Uncle Peckerhead being this like a lovable dork character who just is like your downwoods redneck cousin who's like trying to support you in your crazy punk band, and he's like their number one groupie. And it's so much fun to watch this movie. Just thinking about it makes me want to go sit down and watch it again. And They do not pull back on the gore effects in this movie. It is violent, it is brutal, and that's what I liked. It was a funny, wholehearted comedy that also takes its horror seriously. And there's not enough movies out there like that where when they'll juggle comedy elements into a film, that they'll still continue to take the horror seriously. And that's what I respected the most out of this movie, was even when it got really funny, it never stopped taking the horror part seriously. So this movie is currently streaming on Tubi for free. Just go watch it. It's so worth your time. I can't wait to pick this up on Blu-ray and have it as a film that I watch over and over again. So have you seen Uncle Peckerhead? Did you love it? Did you hate it? Leave me a comment down below and let me know what you thought. I thought this movie was amazing. It's one of my favorite horror comedies in probably the past 10 years, and I look forward to watching it over and over again and constantly raving to people about it. As always, if you can like the video and subscribe to the channel, it helps me out a lot and lets me know the type of content you're looking for. I'm always putting out new material and look forward to getting more out for you in the near future. And as always, everyone, thank you so much for watching, and have a great rest of your day.